third part of today's lesson deals with a review topic. We're going to write some equations in slope-intercept form for a line with a given slope that contains a given point. So the formula that we're going to end up using is that point slope formula. Remember, it goes y minus y1 equals the slope multiplied by the difference of the two x values, x minus x1. So we're going to take our slope, which is negative 3, and we're putting that in place of m. We're going to take the x value, negative 2, and that goes in place of x1. Take the y value, 7, and that goes all the way back here in place of y1. So let's go ahead and rewrite what we've got. And we'll start with writing that y, and then it's a minus 7 equals the slope, negative 3, multiplied by x minus negative 2. So anytime you see the minus negative, get rid of that. Make that a plus positive. So we go ahead and do that, and then also distribute that negative 3 over that sum. So what we've got left, y minus 7 equals negative 3x minus 6. So we can go ahead and use an opposite operation here. We've got a minus 7, so we're going to add 7 to both sides. So when I do that, I'm now left with y equals, and it's negative 3x plus 1. So there is our answer. So we had to subtract those two numbers. They were opposite in sign, more positives than negatives. Well, let's take a look at the next problem. Same sort of thing. We're going to use that slope, that point slope formula. It goes y minus y1 equals the slope, m, times by x minus x1. And we're going to substitute the point and the slope into that equation. So the slope goes in for m. The x value always goes in for x1. The y value goes in place of y1. And then we'll have our equation in that point slope form. Well, when we go ahead and do that substitution, here's what you should have. Y minus negative 1 equals the slope of negative 2/3 times by x minus 6. So again, you see that minus negative? Switch that right away to a plus positive. And then distribute that negative 2/3 over that difference. So let's see what's left. We've got a y plus 1 equals negative 2/3 x. Off to the side, you might want to write out that multiplication with the fractions. Negative 2/3 times by negative 6 over 1. Do some reducing there. You see how the 3 goes into that 6 2 times. So 3 goes into 6 2 times. The two negatives cancel out, so that's where we're getting that positive 4 from. So from that point, we can just do that one opposite operation. That's just to minus the 1 from both sides, and we'll have our answer. So in this case, y equals negative 2/3 x, and then a plus 3. And there is your answer. Well, that's the problems where we're given the slope. Here, in the second set of directions, we have no slope. So we must first find the slope. And we find the slope using our slope formula. It goes y minus y1 over x minus x1. So we're going to take our y values, put those on top. So we'll start with this 2 here. This is a y value. 2 minus negative 23. So here's a y value, and here's a y value. I'll do a y minus y1. Down below, the x value. I've got to start with the negative 1 because I started with the 2. So negative 1 minus 4. So anytime I've got more than one minus sign there, I'm going to add the opposite. So this becomes plus positive. This becomes a plus negative. And do that work. And I've got a bigger number on top. So it's going to end up being either an improper fraction or a whole number. Let's see which one it is, or an integer even. So 25 is what I get over negative 5. So in this case, it's an integer. Negative 5 is the slope. So we've got the slope. Now we use the point slope formula. We use that y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And we just pick a point. Doesn't matter what point you pick. Any of those points will do. I'm going to pick this point here, negative 1, negative 2, and I'm using that slope. And I'm putting it into this point slope formula. So we'll rewrite this as y minus 2 equals the slope, negative 5, times x minus negative 1. And anytime you see that minus negative, change that to a plus positive, and then distribute. And so when we do that, we're still left with this y minus 2, but now it equals negative 5x minus 5. So we just have one step, and that last step is to add 2 to both sides. So when I do that, I have the equation in the slope-intercept form, where y is all by itself. Y equals negative 5x minus 3. There it is. Slope-intercept form, again, is where y is by itself. Well, one more problem to practice before we move on, and here we still need to find the slope. So let's try to find that slope. Remember, that slope formula goes this way. It goes y, or m, equals y minus y1 over x minus x1. Always y on top, because when we're concerned with slope, we're concerned with steepness. And steepness is, we're concerned with how far up we have to go, or how far down. So y is on top. So negative 1 minus negative 10. X is on the bottom. Since I started with the negative 1, I need to start with the 4. 4 minus negative 8. And so again, you just add the opposite. Whenever you see those double negatives, add the opposite, and now we've got 9 over 12. Well, we've got ourselves a fraction. Whenever the bigger number's on the bottom, it's a fraction, and that's okay. It's slope. Slope deals with rise and run. Don't worry about it being a fraction. Just leave it like that. Divide by 3, divide by 3. Reduce that fraction, we're left with 3/4. That's our slope. So now we're going to go ahead and use that point slope formula. Remember, it goes y minus y1 equals m times by x minus x1. And we substitute those numbers in there. So we'll start off with taking one of these points. It doesn't matter which one you pick. I'll just pick this one. It has smaller numbers. It's the only reason I'm using it. So I'll rewrite y minus negative 1 equals the slope, 3/4, times by x minus 4. So again, anytime you see that minus negative, right away I'm changing that to plus a positive. And then distribute that 3/4 over that subtraction. So now we've got this. We've got a y plus 1 equals, and then 3/4 x minus, now off to the side you might write down 3/4 times by negative 4 over 1. Always treat that number as a fraction and look for cross-canceling. 4 goes into negative 4, negative 1 time. Multiply across, we've got ourselves a minus 3. And so from that point, we can go ahead and move some terms. That's a plus 1, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And so when they're the same sign, I'll go ahead and add those two numbers together. So here's my answer. Y equals, and then I've got 3/4 x minus 4. And that would be our answer for this problem. So that's a little review of topics that we've talked about in the past.